The young man recognized the edgy girl in front of him as his daughter right away, but he didn't dare to say a word. That's because he was now younger than his daughter, all because he just transmigrated into this time. To prove his identity to her, he immediately dragged her to a prestigious bank to withdraw a huge sum of money as evidence. But when he confidently claimed he had a vault there, the next second, the lobby manager had them surrounded on the spot. Clearly, they'd taken him for an imposter. Just then, the bank president arrived. He froze for a moment when he saw the young man, but his sense quickly pulled him back to reality. That man had been dead for 16 years, he must have misidentified him. Then they all went to the vault door. After the young man skillfully entered layer after layer of passwords, the vault door actually opened. There, right in front of them, were 500 tons of gold, worth hundreds of billions. This had been the inheritance the man had left for his daughter when he was alive. Seeing this, the bank president began to suspect the young man was Director Yuan's illegitimate son. He would never have guessed that this young man was actually Director Yuan himself. In his previous life, Yuan Ming had become the richest man in the country at a young age, but unfortunately, he was diagnosed with cancer soon after. Knowing his days were numbered, he entrusted all his inheritance and his daughter to his younger brother, repeatedly urging him to take good care of her. But he never knew until his death that his serious illness was actually caused by his younger brother secretly poisoning him over time. After he died, his younger brother took over his billions in assets and kicked his niece out of the house, leaving her an unwanted orphan. Unexpectedly, when Yuan Ming opened his eyes again, he saw his younger self in the reflection of a glass. He initially thought he'd gone back to his 20s, but the surrounding environment and the ads at the entrance proved he hadn't returned to the past. Instead, he transmigrated to 2025. Calculating that his daughter should be 19 now, she ought to have grown into a graceful young lady from a wealthy family. Thinking this, he hurried home to see her. Not far away, an edgy young girl caught his eye. Watching her unconventional and bold dance moves, he couldn't help but laugh. The girl immediately took offense and angrily asked what was so funny. It was at that moment that Yuan Ming suddenly caught a glimpse of the birthmark on the girl's shoulder. It was exactly the same as his own daughter's. But looking at the girl's street-style outfit, he dismissed the thought. After all, his daughter should have been an outstanding young lady from a wealthy family. Just as he was about to leave, he accidentally stepped on the employee ID the girl had dropped on the ground. When he picked it up and looked at it, he was shocked. It was his daughter. Since being kicked out of the house, the girl had been working in a factory to make a living. Now, the factory had even withheld her wages and dragged her out by force. Seeing his daughter in such a pitiful, disheveled state, Yuan Ming's heart ached. So he took her to the bank where he'd kept his assets. At the sight of the piles of gold bars in front of her, the girl's mouth hung open in shock. Now that he'd been reborn, Yuan Ming first needed a place to stay. He told the bank president to arrange a property for him right away, with only one condition: it must be no worse than his younger brother's house. At that moment, his younger brother, Yuan Minghua, also came to the bank only to be stopped by security guards, who told him the bank was closed for the day to serve a VIP client. Little did he know that VIP client was his own older brother. The girl followed this young, successful tycoon home, secretly wondering if he'd taken a fancy to her good looks. But when she threw herself at him, she was completely ignored. Yuan Ming decided to send his daughter back to school. When she stood in front of him, dressed in a neat school uniform, he sighed in relief and thought, this is what my daughter should look like. But as soon as they arrived at the school, they ran into Yuan Minghua's malicious daughter, who was used to bullying the girl. The moment she saw her, she walked over to humiliate her. Who do you think you are, coming here with only a middle school education? You get a new haircut and suddenly you're putting on airs as a wealthy young lady? Yuan Ming immediately stepped in front of his daughter to protect her. The scheming girl had no idea this man was her father's older brother. She tried to name drop her father, the richest man in the city, as backup, but Yuan Ming fired back. He even told her that from that day on, she and her father would become the laughingstock of the entire city. The scheming girl was furious and told her bodyguards to attack. But within a few rounds, Yuan Ming had knocked all the bodyguards to the ground. He couldn't help but sigh. Being young was great. The scheming girl was livid and swore she'd find a way to get revenge for the humiliation she'd suffered that day. Coincidentally, that night was the school's formal ball. When the girl appeared in a gorgeous dress, everyone praised her, saying she looked just like a young lady from a wealthy family, completely outshining the scheming girl. Refusing to accept this, the scheming girl immediately ordered someone to drag the girl out and strip her clothes off. She also threatened everyone present, whoever dares to look at her again will end up the same way. The girl fought back as hard as she could. Just then, Yuan Ming arrived in time and pushed the surrounding people away. Seeing his daughter being bullied so pitifully, his heart ached terribly. At that moment, the school administrator arrived. The scheming girl immediately turned the tables, falsely accusing girl of stealing and hitting other students. Her best friend also chimed in to back her up on purpose. Yuan Ming couldn't hold back anymore. We can just check the surveillance footage to see who's in the right and who's in the wrong, he said. But the scheming girl didn't care at all. She thought no one dared to go against her. Yuan Ming warned her, don't think that just because you're Yuan Minghua's daughter, you can act with impunity. Aren't you afraid there's someone even your father can't afford to offend? The scheming girl remained arrogant. She didn't believe anyone present was more powerful than her father. Then she ordered someone to throw Yuan Ming and Zhu out. The snobbish school administration staff knew full well they couldn't afford to offend the scheming girl's father, so they moved to act. By this time, the girl had reached her breaking point. She grabbed a mop and swung it, then pushed the scheming girl to the ground, wanting to wipe that filthy mouth of hers. The scheming girl screamed for her best friend to help her and even threatened to cut off future business collaborations between her family and the school. But Yuan Ming stood beside his daughter, encouraging her. Let it all out, he said. I'll take care of whatever trouble comes up. Meanwhile, the butler quickly sent a message to Yuan Minghua. When Yuan Minghua heard about the situation, he was afraid the man might be someone important, so he sent his assistant to look into the man's identity. When he heard the assistant couldn't find any information about him, he immediately brought a group of bodyguards to the school. The scheming girl thought she now had backup. She ran over to her father and poured out her grievances. Yuan Minghua immediately turned to the girl and warned her, "Have you forgotten who's in charge of the Yuan family?" He then ordered his bodyguards to take her away. Just then, a young man's voice rang out. "I'd like to ask, who exactly is in charge of the Yuan family?" Yuan Ming walked forward. When Yuan Ming saw that familiar face, he froze in place. It was the spitting image of his older brother when he was young. Faced with that face, Yuan Mingwa was too scared to speak for a long time. After a moment of thinking, he finally regained his composure. He managed to convince himself that this man only looked like his older brother. Then he decided to go all the way. Even if this was his older brother, he could get rid of him again. He ordered his men to attack. But just then, the bank president spoke up, warning him, "Do you really want to attack the new school board chairman in front of everyone?" Because just a moment earlier, the young man had bought the entire school.